Alright, in this video I'm going to share with you how to manage your imposter syndrome, how to achieve things despite of it, and even how to use imposter syndrome to your advantage. Now, the first thing that I want to address is that I want to make a clear distinction because there can actually be two potential definitions of imposter syndrome. And the first one is what Alex Hormozi has tweeted multiple times, which basically what he's saying, so let me read the tweets. It's not imposter syndrome, you're just not good enough yet. How to get imposter syndrome? You fail, you teach like you succeed, and then you charge money for it. You're only an imposter if you claim things to be true that are not. So if you feel like one, either you're lying to the world or you're lying to yourself. Look, all of these things that he's saying, this is not imposter syndrome. This is literally being an imposter. That is being a scammer, right? Basically, the thing that he's describing are people, for example, in the business space, that they pretend that they have achieved certain things and then they try to give consulting services. But they feel like an imposter because obviously they have achieved nothing in their lives. But again, this is not imposter syndrome. That is literally, in a way, being a scammer, being an imposter. The thing that I am actually talking about is when there is objective evidence to support that you can do something, that you are capable. But in your mind, you're overwhelmed by self-doubt because you're extremely self-critical with yourself. You think that you're not gonna do the right thing, that you're actually not good enough, to the point that it's actually crippling you. Basically, there is a mismatch between your perception of things and reality. A very easy way to understand it is that this is what some bodybuilders experience, that is called muscle dysmorphia. So even though they might be huge, they still think and they have this perception that they're very, very small. So it's kind of like the same thing. The image that they have of themselves in their head doesn't match what they are in reality. So imposter syndrome is kind of the same thing, but instead of with your muscles, with your skills, with your accomplishments, with the things that you're capable of doing. And I think this comes from childhood to some extent. Maybe it's the people that you had around when you were growing up, your parents, your teachers. Maybe the only thing that they ever paid attention to were the things that you did wrong, but they never acknowledged the things that you did right. And that instilled in your head the idea that nothing that you do is good or worth it, that you're not capable or useful. And also I think that social media has had an effect on this. I found this very interesting graph recently, and look at how some kids, 8th graders, 10th graders, 12th graders, are describing themselves like, oh, I cannot do anything right. My life is not useful. And if you look at the graph, you can see how everything started around 2014, 2013, 2015, which is when social media started to pick up a lot of momentum. And I think this happens because, especially nowadays, if you look starting from 2021, there's a lot of influencers on social media, especially in the business space, that they're constantly throwing this message like, oh, I'm better than you, I'm more capable than you, you're a failure, you're this, you're not doing anything, you're not moving, which for some people, it's actually useful because it fires them up, it gives them this motivation. But for a lot of people, it does the opposite effect. Like they hear those things and they actually accept them. And I mean, I kind of understand it because they have this message blasted to them 24/7. Depends on what kind of influencers you listen to. Sometimes I go on Twitter and I see these guys claiming like, oh, if you're 20 years old or 18 and you're not already making like 50K a month or 30K a month, even some guys are like, no, if you're not making 100K a month, you're a failure. And they're telling this to 20-year-olds. And in a way, if you think about it, something that I was thinking is that imposter syndrome is kind of the opposite of narcissism. With some forms of narcissism, what people believe is that they're just the best, even though if there's evidence against that, if there's clear evidence that they're not capable of doing something, that something is not going to work, they don't care, right? They just blindly believe that they're the best and they're going to accomplish it, right? So imposter syndrome is kind of the opposite. Even though there is the evidence, they just give up and do not try. And look, just to push a little bit more against what Alex Hormozi was saying, because I have examples that I've seen in my own life of people who suffer from this that I have met, who have tangible results, people who are experts. For example, I have a friend of mine who actually has one of the best natural physiques I have ever seen, period. Like, he's better than 99.9% of influencers out there. He has the physique, honestly, of someone that could have more than 1 million followers. He knows so much, but he just does not have the guts to start a personal brand because what he has is an inferiority complex. So much so to the point that it's crippling, that it's paralyzing. He judges himself so harshly. And I remember that something similar happened to me and my business partner the first time we ever built a successful business. I think it was around the time that we crossed 50K a month. I think that was back in 2018 or 2019. I don't remember. And some people came to us because they wanted our help and they wanted us to help them build an online store, to run ads, to make the website and all of that stuff. And it was the first time that someone was coming to us for this kind of help. And I remember me and my business partner doubting ourselves so much, even though we had the evidence, even though we were having these results and we were doing great and we knew what we were doing and how e-commerce worked and all of that. But we were just like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna do a perfect job. Maybe there's people who are better than us and could do a better job. Maybe we're actually not that qualified, even though we're doing great. And what if this and what if that and yada yada yada. Okay, so that is what true imposter syndrome is. You have all the evidence, but you doubt yourself to the point that you just quit even before you start. So let me give you a few insights on how we can solve this entire thing. The first thing to note is that imposter syndrome should be treated in the exact same way that you treat fear. I'm sure that you've heard this quote, that courage, it is not to be fearless, but in fact courage is acting despite having fear. Even though you have fear, you just go and you do the thing. Well, to deal with imposter syndrome, it is exactly the same thing. Despite having it, you ignore it and do the thing, because that's all imposter syndrome is, a perception, a feeling. And then once you do the thing 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, then this illusion starts to break. For example, there is someone that I offer my consulting services to from time to time, and in the past, he had good success with online businesses. He knew how to make good funnels, how to run ads, how to convert, and even other useful skills like in-person sales. But a couple years ago, he was considering starting a social media marketing agency, but he was so doubtful about it, thinking that his services would not be good enough, wondering if he could actually be helpful to people, even though he knew how to do all of these things. But finally, he ended up taking his shot, and then he took 1 client, 2 clients, 3 clients, and then as the positive testimonials came rushing in, that's again when the illusion started to break. And nowadays he's making between 20 and 30K profit per month. And this is a common pattern that imposter syndrome manifests itself a lot in the beginning. And I think that's why it happens frequently with people who suffer from a little bit of perfectionism, because they feel that they're not ready yet. But there's no such thing as 100% ready or 100% perfect, because in a way that's what they're aiming to do. Even though my friend has a physique that's like better than 99.9, even I would say 9% of people, because he's not at 100%, because he's literally not the number 1 in the world. Well, now he has this inferiority complex. But if you wait for this 100%, like, you're gonna miss all the opportunities, because in fact the way you get to 100%, the way you get to being number 1 is by first being number 2 and before number 3 and number 4 and number 5. So like, you have to start somewhere. But to me, the most fascinating part of it all is what I told you at the beginning of the video, which is that you can use imposter syndrome to your advantage. I think this is the coolest part of it. So in a way, this functions similar to procrastination. In the book, The War of Art, Steven Pressfield talks about this force that he calls resistance. And this is something that manifests itself when there is something that you want to do, you know, that special project of yours. Maybe it's writing a book, writing a movie screenplay, some new project, doing a video, a painting, a business, whatever it is. And then resistance manifests itself in many different forms. It can be in the form of digital distractions, you know, maybe it's Instagram. It can be in the form of lust, okay? Maybe you're hornier than usual and you're distracted by it. Maybe it's just hunger. Maybe it's a fake outburst of productivity, but in other areas, right? This happens to a lot of people. Like, supposedly they should get to work, but instead they start cleaning the house or whatever. And even the way this can manifest itself is with self-doubt. Okay, this is something that he talks about in the book too. Just coming to the conclusion like, yeah, maybe it's not worth it, I'm not good enough, it's not gonna work out, maybe I'm not ready yet. So basically resistance is all these things that they're pulling you away, as you can see from the arrows, they're pulling you away from the thing that you should do. Because sometimes the brain is tricky like that. But what Steven realized in his book is that you can actually use that as a compass. If you feel like you have all of these things pulling you away, well, if you flip them around, if you flip around the arrows, now all of them are pointing towards the thing that you know you should be doing. This is the clear path that you need to take. Because sometimes in life, for some reason, that's how it works. That's how the brain works. The thing that would make you grow the most is the thing that for some reason psychologically you just put a lot of excuses on. You have all these internal conflicts and emotions, but that is a clear sign that that's the journey that you need to embark on. That's the thing that you need to tackle right on. And then what you do is that once you attack this and you start to get your first wins, like my friends right here, you drown those beliefs of imposter syndrome and the inferiority complex and the self-doubt. You drown those beliefs with the undeniable proof, all the evidence of the happy customers and all the results. And I think this is something that Tony Robbins mentioned in his book, Awaken the Giant Within, that this is a way in which you can change your identity and your beliefs. Even though there's those beliefs that you have inside of you that go against the persona that you would like to be, you just take action towards the thing that you want regardless. And then as things start to tick off and everything is going the way it should go, you just overcompensate with success. You just keep presenting more and more evidence until not even the greatest delusion could deny it anymore. Now, something that can happen is that even if you do all of that and you reduce your imposter syndrome, if you have an off season in which you're just not doing much for a while, maybe you're just procrastinating or whatever, and a long period of time elapses, what can happen is that imposter syndrome can start to build up again. Because in a way, maybe it's like your brain is forgetting about all the things you did, how it felt to do it and to achieve it. But if that happens, the solution is the exact same. You just jump right into it, start taking action, and then just start getting results, and quickly it can just fade away. And also think about this. Imagine that the imposter syndrome for you is true. Imagine that you are the imposter that Alex Hormozi is describing, okay? It's not that you have imposter syndrome, but that literally you're an imposter. You're a scammer. The solution is still literally the same. You just go, you take action, you get the results, you develop the skills, you learn, and then you will not be an imposter anymore. So whatever your case is, it is all fixed by this thing that I told you at the beginning. Just treating it in the same way that you do courage and fear. Just taking action despite of whatever you feel like. And one thing that is very useful that I would recommend you to go watch right now is this video that I have on my channel on how to build limitless momentum. I think it's going to be very, very useful for you. So go do that, and I will see you very soon. Take care. Peace.